Lies rot faster in the mouth of the wrong listener, and now the stench is chasing them. That's what happens when they gamble your name like loose change and toss it into the wrong hands. You see, chosen one, they tried to sell a false version of you, a cheaper version, one that was easier for others to hate. But the problem is, they picked the wrong buyer. Imagine someone planting a poisoned seed about you in a garden they didn't own, only to find out the soil belonged to someone who actually respects growth, truth, and authenticity. That lie they told, it didn't just fall flat, it exploded in their face. And now they're not avoiding you because they won. They're avoiding you because the universe made sure they lost badly. That lie boomeranged so fast, it made them dizzy. Here's a fact for your soul. When someone with true integrity hears a lie, they don't echo it. They investigate it, and once they realize the truth, they don't forget who tried to manipulate them. This is why they're staying far away from you now, not because you're a problem, but because their cover has been blown. Their fake story couldn't survive the light, and now they're burning from the exposure. And thank you, chosen one. Don't forget to pay this message back by simply pressing the like and subscribe button to help spread this truth to more souls. It's the responsibility of all of us to share the light in a world that's grown too comfortable in the dark. And thank you, chosen one, for being part of this mission. You're not just a listener, you are part of a force that exposes lies and defends truth by simply existing. Now back to what really matters. They never expected the truth to fight for you. They never thought that someone else, someone they believed they could manipulate, would see through the fog and recognize your name as pure. The same name they tried to drag through dirt is now protected by someone who knows your character. It's almost laughable, isn't it? The same person they ran to with twisted words is now looking at them like they're the liar. That's what scares them. That's why they're distant. That's why they flinch when they hear your name. This isn't just gossip that backfired. It's a full-on karmic exposure. The moment they lied about you to someone who actually had spiritual insight, emotional intelligence, or even real-world power, their fate was sealed. And now they have to live with the knowledge that someone else knows. That person might not even say anything, but their silence is loud. Their changed behavior speaks volumes, and the liar feels it. They thought they could destroy you without you even knowing, but the truth has a spine, and when it stands up, it shakes every room the lie tried to live in. That's why they've gone quiet. That's why they don't come around. Because your name has already walked in before you did. And it spoke truth louder than any excuse they could offer. You don't have to lift a finger. That's the power of being the chosen one. When you carry truth in your spirit, the universe becomes your witness. And sometimes it doesn't just protect you. It makes them face the shame without you having to say a word. You're not being avoided because you're dangerous. You're being avoided because you're exposed. They see their lie mirrored in your silence. They feel judged by your peace. And every time they see you living, breathing, and winning, it reminds them that their words had no power after all. But here's what really makes them squirm. Someone they wanted to impress now knows the truth. Someone they were hoping to manipulate now questions them. That one conversation they twisted turned into a silent trial, and they were found guilty. No courtroom needed. Just truth doing what it always does, showing up uninvited and turning the lights on. Let's be real, it wasn't just a lie, it was a character hit job. They thought if they could smear your name behind your back, they could change how others see you. But they underestimated one thing. You don't need to defend your reputation when your spirit already speaks louder than words. You didn't have to clap back. You didn't even need to find out right away. Because the universe had eyes where you didn't, and it took care of it. So now, when you notice people avoiding you, acting weird, or giving you strange energy, it's not paranoia, it's not in your head, it's the echo of truth doing its job. They're pulling back because they can't look you in the eyes. Not after what they said, not after who they said it to, and especially not now that it came back to them. Every time you show up, it reminds them of their betrayal. Every smile you wear, every peaceful moment you have, it screams to the world that their lies didn't work. And that person they tried to poison with their words, that person sees you now, clearly, and they see them too. That's why the liar is nervous. That's why the air is thick when you walk into the room. Not because you're loud, but because your presence now speaks louder than their story ever did. This is what being chosen looks like. It's not about attention or revenge. It's about being so aligned with truth that you don't need to fight for it. Truth fights for you. Exposure chases them. Silence becomes your shield, and their own words become their punishment. So no, you're not imagining things. They are staying away from you. They are uncomfortable, and not because you did something wrong, but because they did, and the universe handed them a mirror. Watch closely, chosen one. This is the season where the truth travels faster than gossip and lies burn in the light they never expected to face. You didn't have to plot. You didn't have to curse them. You just had to stay real. And now, the weight of their own lie is doing what they feared most. It's making them disappear from your life on their own. That's divine order. That's universal justice. That's what happens when a chosen one gets lied on to the wrong person. And listen, chosen one, if you've ever felt people pulling away for no clear reason, you're about to understand exactly why. What comes next will connect dots you didn't even know existed. This isn't just a story, it's your confirmation. So don't blink. Drop a 444 in the comments if you're ready to let the truth expose every hidden lie spoken behind your back. And if this message is hitting home, consider blessing the mission with a super thanks. It fuels the team to keep delivering these raw truths straight to the ones who need them. Whether it's a small gift or a big one, every drop of support pushes this light further into the world. You're not just listening, you're part of a movement. And now, let's break this wide open, step by step. Believe me, if you're truly chosen, you'll feel something pulling you to stay locked in until the very end. Let's begin. Number 1. They bet your reputation at a table they couldn't afford to sit at and lost everything. The sickest part of betrayal is not the lie itself, it's who they told it to, thinking you'd never find out. They didn't just lie about you, they bet your name like it was worthless, threw it into a fire hoping no one would notice the smoke, and walked away like nothing happened. But what they didn't know, chosen one, is that the fire they started reached someone who carries water. Someone with clarity, influence, and enough intelligence to know the difference between truth and jealousy. They whispered your name like a curse, but the ears they whispered to were more loyal to truth than to gossip. That was their fatal mistake. What kind of person lies about someone who never hurt them? Only someone weak enough to fear your presence, but too cowardly to face you head-on. They saw your strength, they felt your power, and they hated how other people gravitated toward your energy without you trying. So they did what cowards always do. They tried to kill your image in rooms you weren't in, but they didn't realize that some rooms are sacred. Some people can't be manipulated. And one of those people was the very person they chose to unload their venom onto. Let's break it down. They lied to the wrong person, not just emotionally wrong, but strategically wrong. Someone who could have opened doors for them, but instead now sees them as shady, insecure, and untrustworthy. That's the sting they carry now. That's the invisible chain wrapped around their ankle every time they think about you. Because the person they tried to poison didn't just reject the lie. They started watching you, quietly, closely, and they began to see for themselves that you were everything the liar was pretending to be. Here's the part that eats them alive. What if that person already told you? What if they're just watching and waiting to see how you handle it? What if your silence is louder than they expected and it's making them sweat? That's why they're staying away. It's not guilt that keeps them distant, it's fear. Fear that the truth is already unraveling. Fear that the universe picked you to be seen and them to be exposed. They didn't just misjudge you, they misjudged the integrity of the very person they used to launch their attack. That lie became their leash, and now they flinch every time your name comes up, wondering if today's the day it all explodes. This is what happens when someone gambles your reputation like a poker chip in a game of fake alliances and petty ego. They thought they were being strategic, thought they were stacking the deck against you, but they forgot one crucial rule. The universe always deals the final hand, and in that final hand, they folded. You were holding truth the whole time. So no, don't pity them. Let them squirm in the silence they created. Let them fear your grace, your growth, your glow-up. Because while they stay away, trying to avoid their own reflection in your rising light, you're becoming the proof that their lies never had any real power to begin with. Let that be their punishment. Let that be your fuel. Number 2, they chose to play the villain in a story that was secretly their final exam. Some people fail the test, not because it was hard, but because their character was weak the moment they were unsupervised. They thought they were being clever, chosen one, a quick little lie, a casual twist of truth, a harmless jab behind your back just to gain some sympathy, or maybe to deflect attention from their own flaws. But what they didn't realize is they had just stepped into a storyline that was never even about you. You weren't a side character in their journey. You were the test, an unexpected exam that showed up dressed like a friendship, a partnership, or a connection. And they failed it in the worst way possible. Imagine this, chosen one. Imagine walking into a classroom thinking you're there to observe, only to find out later that you were the one being evaluated. That's what they walked into. They thought they were the main character, but the universe had other plans. They didn't realize that by lying on you, they weren't just speaking against a person. They were exposing everything they hadn't healed inside themselves. You were a mirror, not because you're perfect, but because your presence holds weight. You carry truth without trying. You don't chase approval, and you don't wear masks. That kind of raw authenticity, it makes the wrong people itch. Instead of looking inward, they looked for a shortcut. They tried to flip the script so they wouldn't have to face their own reflection. They called your silence passive-aggressive. They labeled your boundaries selfish. They saw your peace and called it ego. But let's call it what it really was: projection rooted in insecurity. Your light didn't blind them. They closed their own eyes. They weren't supposed to tear you down. That's the twist. They were supposed to guard your name when no one was watching. They were given a divine assignment to honor something sacred, even when it wasn't popular, even when others weren't clapping. But instead, they chose convenience. They chose jealousy. They chose to be the villain in a story they didn't even realize was theirs. You were never the one being judged. You were the trigger that revealed what was hiding in them all along. And now they're avoiding you like you're radioactive. But let's be real, it's not you they're afraid of. It's the weight of their own failure, the shame that clings to them like smoke from a fire they started but couldn't control. They don't know what you know. They don't know if the person they whispered to has already told you. They don't know how much was heard, how much was seen, or how far the damage has spread. That uncertainty, that's their punishment. Imagine planting a rumor in someone's ear, only to find out later that ear belonged to a judge, not a fellow gossiper. That's what happened. They confided their poison to the wrong person, someone who saw right through it, someone who was already watching you and couldn't reconcile the lie with the truth they saw in you. So now they're stuck, awkward, distant, and exposed. The test they failed wasn't about whether they liked you. It was about how they treated you when it was inconvenient, when you weren't at your best, when your name wasn't trending. That's the real test of integrity. You know what's brutal? They thought the moment to prove themselves would come dressed in glory, a big opportunity, a spotlight. They didn't realize it came quietly, in a conversation, in a choice, in a moment where they could have honored your absence instead of trying to erase you from someone else's heart. They fumbled that moment, and now they can't take it back. Questions may be rising in your mind right now. Did they ever really value me? Did they see me as a threat the whole time? Why lie about someone who never tried to harm them? The answer is ugly but simple. They were never at peace with themselves. And you were just the closest mirror. The lie they told about you was their way of managing the discomfort of watching someone walk in authenticity while they were still hiding behind performance. The loudest lies are told in the quietest moments. Now they're haunted, not by what you've done, but by what they said. Not by your reaction, but by their own reflection, because every time they see you shining, they remember what they said to dim you. Every time someone compliments your character, they feel the sting of their own false words. And every time the person they tried to turn against you treats you with more kindness than ever, they know they failed the test. This was never about revenge. This was about revelation. The universe placed you in their life not to be destroyed by them, but to reveal them to themselves, and they chose the role of the villain all on their own. They weren't pushed. They weren't tricked. They had a choice, and they chose wrong. So let them keep their distance. Let them squirm in their silence. Let them fear the truth they created with their own mouth. Because the story they tried to rewrite now has footnotes, and the person they lied to is reading between every line. That lie will echo louder than they expected, not because you exposed them, but because their actions spoke too loudly to ignore. You don't need to clear your name. Your name was never dirty. You don't need to retaliate. They've already sentenced themselves. And as the chapters unfold, everyone who matters will see exactly who was tested and who failed without even realizing they were being watched. Villains write their own endings, and sometimes it starts with a whisper they thought no one would remember. This is your moment to rise, not to clap back, but to walk past the mess they made with your name like it never touched you. Because it didn't. Not really. They fell into a trap of their own design. You were never the problem. You were the spotlight, and their shadow couldn't handle the exposure. So walk boldly, chosen one, not because you need to prove something, but because you already passed the test they didn't even study for. And now the universe is rewriting the script, this time with your truth front and center. Number 3. Their lie became a crime scene, and every word is still under surveillance. The moment they lied on you, they left fingerprints on their own downfall. They thought a lie would vanish once whispered in the shadows. They figured if no one pushed back, it would just dissolve. But that's where they messed up. Because when someone lies about a chosen one, that lie doesn't fade. It fossilizes. It becomes part of an investigation bigger than they ever imagined. One they didn't know they triggered. One they sure weren't ready for. The second they spoke against you, they left a trail. And that trail didn't just lead to you. It looped right back to them. Their lie wasn't light gossip. It was a silent confession, a coded admission of who they are under pressure. The universe didn't just hear it. It stored it. The energy behind it, the intention in their voice, the smirk they wore when they told it, all of it became undeniable evidence of character. And now that lie is still echoing. Why? Because the person they lied to didn't just listen, they analyzed. They caught the off rhythm. The story didn't sit right. The energy clashed. So instead of reacting, they started watching. Closely, quietly, and now every word spoken about you is replaying in their head like a loop they can't shut off. Why does the chosen one still move in peace? Why do they still shine? These questions won't leave them alone, because every day you walk in truth, it cracks their version of events wide open. The truth is louder than ever, and they're terrified someone else is starting to hear it too. They didn't just speak carelessly, they documented their own betrayal in real time. Now they feel watched, they feel exposed. The same person they tried to convince now sees the truth unfold with their own eyes. And that truth is hunting them, not because you're chasing them, but because they lied in front of someone who remembers everything. They tried to poison your blessing. Now that blessing guards you like a shield. When a snake bites in the grass, the universe sends someone with boots. They thought they were slick, twisting words behind your back, throwing shade in casual conversations, planting subtle seeds of doubt into someone they believed was neutral. But that person wasn't just anyone. That was someone sent to bless you, to open doors, to guide you, maybe even to defend you when you weren't in the room. And the moment that lie was spoken, everything flipped. Because instead of infecting your blessing, they activated it. The irony? The person they tried to turn against you didn't just ignore the lie. They studied it. They paid attention to the energy behind it, not just the words. Something didn't feel right. The bitterness was too loud. The jealousy too obvious. So instead of pulling away from you, they got curious. They started observing, quietly, and what they saw was not a threat, but a truth bearer. You weren't defensive. You didn't fight fire with fire. You stood still. You kept your peace. And that silence, it spoke louder than any rumor could. That person saw the contrast. They saw your character under pressure, and they saw the liar's mask slip in real time. That changed everything. Who really holds value here? Who's walking with grace and who's throwing darts in the dark? The answers were clear. And now the person meant to elevate you is doing exactly that. Not by force, not with loud declarations, but with subtle loyalty and quiet protection. The liar's plan backfired so hard, it turned their target into someone else's priority. That access they once had, gone, not because you slammed the door, but because the very person they tried to manipulate locked it. Now they stand on the outside, wondering why everything feels colder, why they're not included, why the air shifted. It's because the universe made a judgment call and chose to protect the one being lied on, not the one doing the lying. They thought they were sabotaging you, but all they did was promote you. Number 4. Their jealousy spoke louder than their lie, and everyone heard it. Envy doesn't whisper your name, it chokes on it. They didn't just misrepresent you, chosen one, they exposed themselves without realizing it. The moment they started talking about you, something in their voice betrayed the act. It wasn't concern, it wasn't care, it was envy, dressed up in polite language, dripping with false sincerity. They tried to wrap their jealousy in silk, but jealousy has a smell. It seeps through every word. They said things like, "I'm just being honest," or "I'm worried about them." But beneath those fake gestures was irritation. An itch they couldn't scratch because your peace kept reminding them how uncentered they are. Imagine someone describing you to others while trying to sound calm, but every word they speak sounds like a confession. That's what happened here. The person listening caught it immediately. They didn't interrupt, but they felt it. Because real care is light. It moves gently. Jealousy, on the other hand, drags. It carries tension, bitterness, a forced laugh that never reaches the eyes. The listener might not have said it aloud, but they clocked every detail. The energy didn't match the words. The message was offbeat. The math wasn't mathing, and now the liar knows it. What eats them alive is that they were trying to make you look fake, but the only thing exposed was their insecurity. You didn't compete with them. You weren't even in the game. You were just existing, peaceful, focused, growing, and that stability made their chaos impossible to hide. Your calm made their ego itch. Your quiet confidence made their mask slip. They were trying to dim you, but instead they highlighted just how uncomfortable they are with light that doesn't need validation. Jealousy doesn't always scream. It leaks through tone, through timing, through the tremble of someone trying too hard to sound kind. And that's what gave them away. The listener saw it. They saw the difference between authentic observation and envy disguised as insight. They realized that you weren't the one trying to prove something. They were. Now the liar avoids you not because they're over it, but because they're exposed. They know if they come too close, that same energy will betray them again. They lost credibility in silence. They failed their own performance test. And now when your name comes up, everyone remembers that one moment, the tone, the slip, the bitterness that cracked through the mask. They tried to talk about you, but the universe made them talk through themselves. And what came out was jealousy, loud, raw, and unforgettable. Number 5. Your presence is a lie detector. That's why they stay away. You don't have to say a word. Your silence already proved them wrong. They're not keeping their distance because they're scared of an argument. They're scared of exposure. See, confrontation would at least give them a chance to perform, to defend, to twist, to play the victim. But silence? Your silence is surgical. It slices through every lie they ever told without raising your voice. Being near you now feels like standing under a spotlight with blood on their hands because the truth doesn't need to speak when it's walking right beside them. Your presence makes them twitch. Why? Because it carries clarity. Your energy is too pure, too aligned, too solid to coexist with their deception. The lie they told was crafted for people who had never met you. But now that you're glowing, rising, and walking in undeniable truth, even their most rehearsed story can't survive next to your reality. Imagine telling a room you saw smoke, and then the person walks in holding clean air. That's how exposed they feel when you enter a space. Every part of their lie starts unraveling, not because you say anything, but because the room sees you for themselves. You became proof without trying. You became the contradiction that ruins their entire script. They thought time would bury the lie. that the months would fade their betrayal, but instead, every day you shine, it drags their guilt up from the grave. Your evolution turned into a mirror they can't look into. And the worst part for them? Others see it now. The way people speak about you with respect, the way they respond to your spirit. It's confirmation that their lie didn't land the way they'd hoped, and that eats them alive. They stay away, not because they've matured, but because they know if they get too close, the mask will slip. The contrast is too loud. The difference between who you are and who they claimed you were is undeniable. They gambled on your character, and now you walk in like a quiet verdict. No drama, no revenge, just presence. You became the truth, and they can't stand how loud your silence has become. Number 6. They tried to fool a real one. Now that truth has a bodyguard. Some people don't need receipts. They feel the fraud the moment it speaks. They thought they were being slick. They twisted your name just enough to sound believable, threw in half-truths coated in fake concern, thinking they could paint you as the villain without getting their hands dirty. But they miscalculated everything. Because the person they chose to lie to? That wasn't some gullible follower. That was someone with eyes that see deeper, someone emotionally intelligent, spiritually grounded. The kind of person who doesn't just hear what's being said, they sense what's being hidden. The moment that lie left their mouth, the atmosphere shifted. The story didn't sit right. The tone didn't match the face. The words didn't align with the energy. That's what people with real discernment catch. They know when something's off, even when it's wrapped in calm delivery. The liar thought they were playing chess, making strategic moves. But really, they were moving like amateurs, careless, predictable, and sloppy. Imagine someone lying about you to a person who already respects you in silence. That's exactly what happened. The person they tried to poison didn't confront, didn't argue, they observed. And what they saw was weakness, desperation, insecurity disguised as storytelling. From that moment on, loyalty shifted, but not loudly, silently, permanently. Now that same person is standing between you and the liar, emotionally, energetically, even spiritually. They protect your name in places you'll never hear about. They see you clearer now. And the liar. They feel the change. That awkward silence, that sudden coldness, that slow fade. They don't know exactly what turned, but they feel it. And it haunts them, because they thought they were controlling the narrative. Instead, they handed the truth to someone who could smell lies from a mile away. You never had to defend yourself. The universe made sure someone with discernment stood guard. And once that person saw through the performance, they couldn't unsee it. That's what scares the liar most. They got exposed without you ever saying a word. Number 7. They built a lie so big it became their cage. When you lie about someone long enough, the real punishment is realizing you can't face them anymore. They didn't just lie about you, they crafted a version of reality so warped, so self-serving, that now they're stuck inside it. At first, it gave them a rush, the illusion of control, the attention they crave. They got to be the victim in a story they wrote, using your name like a prop. But the plot turned against them, because the bigger the lie got, the more it boxed them in. Now they're trapped in a narrative they can't rewrite without tearing their own mask off. Why don't they come around anymore? Why haven't they made things right? Because to fix it, they'd have to face the very truth they tried to bury. They'd have to admit they twisted facts, admit they were jealous, admit they tried to sabotage someone who was never their enemy. And that level of honesty, it requires a spine they simply don't have. So instead, they hide behind distance. But don't mistake that for peace. It's self-inflicted exile. Imagine building a wall to keep someone out, only to realize you locked yourself in. That's exactly what happened. You didn't cut them off. Their own lie did. And now, every win you collect, every compliment you receive, every person who sees your value, it all presses against their story like a growing crack in a dam. They can't even clap for you publicly. Doing so would mean admitting they were wrong about everything. They watch in silence, pretend they've moved on, but behind that cold avoidance is a storm of regret. They're haunted by what they said, haunted by who they said it to, and now even thinking about you stirs the shame they buried. They want to come back, but they know the path is paved with truth, and that's a road they're too afraid to walk, so they stay away, not because they've healed, not because they're at peace, but because the lie they told became a prison, and they threw away the key. Number 8. You became the proof that shattered their lie. The most brutal deceit isn't what you say, it's what you become in silence. They thought you'd break. They were counting on it. The lie they told was built on one hope, that you would spiral just enough to make it look true, that your silence could be painted as guilt, your peace twisted into pride. But they underestimated your resilience. You didn't break down, you leveled up. And now, chosen one, your life is the loudest proof they were lying all along. You became the contradiction that ruins their story. Every time you grow, it exposes the cracks in their lie. Every time you walk into a room with calm, clarity, and elevation, it shakes the foundation they tried to build against you. You don't have to announce anything. You are the announcement. You didn't have to defend yourself with words. Your energy, your consistency, and your quiet wins did it for you. Imagine telling the world someone's broken and then watching them rise higher than you've ever been. That's what they're living through now. You became the evidence that can't be debated. People are starting to ask questions. Those who once leaned into their story are now side-eyeing it. Because the truth is undeniable when it walks like peace and talks like results. That's what haunts them. You are the living receipt, an embodiment of everything they tried to say you weren't. The lie they crafted now lives in the shadow of your glow, and every new level you reach makes them look more foolish, more bitter, more exposed. They can't even clap for you without choking on their own story. They don't stay away because they're too busy. They stay away because your very existence invalidates their entire performance. You are the truth they hoped would disappear. You are the mirror they can't bear to look into. And no matter how far they run, they'll never escape the one thing they never expected: you becoming the proof. Number 9. They tried to smear your name, but all they did was erase themselves. Every lie they told was a silent request to be removed from your life, and the universe delivered. They thought they were running a slick operation, crafting stories, warping reality, spinning just enough detail to make you look like the villain while they played the innocent victim. But they didn't realize something powerful. The moment they opened their mouth against you, they weren't just attacking your name, they were canceling their own invitation to your life. Every rumor they spread was like signing an invisible restraining order with their own hand. Not against you, against themselves. Because when someone lies about someone chosen, aligned and protected, it's not just petty, it's spiritually suicidal. The universe doesn't allow manipulation to sit comfortably next to truth. You didn't remove them, you didn't cut them off. Their own words did the cutting. Their gossip drew the line. Their betrayal sealed the distance. Imagine trying to block someone's blessing and accidentally locking yourself out of the door you were begging to get through. That's what they did. They tried to stain your reputation and ended up staining their own integrity. Now, when they walk into rooms, the air is different. Conversations don't flow the same. People who once laughed with them now look at them with quiet doubt. They can't explain why it's colder, but you can. The energy knows. The lie had a price, and they're paying it daily. They thought they were pushing others away from you, but really they were being pushed away from you. That's the divine reversal. The more they talked, the more the universe started repositioning you and removing them. You didn't even have to move. They disconnected themselves. Now every attempt to re-enter your space feels blocked. Not by anger, not by revenge, but by a spiritual force that guards what's sacred. Your energy is no longer available to them, not because you're bitter, but because you're protected. And protection sometimes looks like unexplainable silence and closed doors. They'll never find peace until they tell the truth, because the distance they feel now isn't just physical, it's cosmic. And once you lie on someone chosen, that kind of barrier doesn't lift until the truth is spoken out loud. Number 10, the one they lied to turned into the mirror they can't escape. The lie didn't go unnoticed. It just landed in the lap of someone who sees everything without speaking a word. They thought it slipped by. They figured their version of the story was clever enough, casual enough, twisted just right to avoid suspicion. But they were wrong, dead wrong, because the person they whispered to wasn't some pawn. That person was placed with purpose. They were never just a listener, they were a witness. The universe doesn't waste ears, and it never misplaces eyes. That conversation wasn't hidden, it was recorded in silence, and now it's playing back louder than they ever expected. The person they lied to didn't challenge them, they didn't get into a debate, they simply observed, and what they saw over time shattered the false image that had been painted. They watched you handle pressure with poise. They saw your kindness, your consistency, your refusal to stoop low or seek revenge, and that quiet observer started putting the pieces together. This isn't the villain I was warned about. This is someone different entirely. Imagine trying to frame someone only to have the judge live next door, watching your every move. That's exactly what happened. The person they lied to became the silent judge, not with a gavel, not with an announcement, but with energy, with distance, with changed behavior. They no longer laugh the same with the liar. They no longer look at them with trust. The air has shifted. The room is colder, and the liar feels it. They don't know exactly when it turned, but they know why. The very person they tried to weaponize now quietly favors you, not because of gossip, but because of observation. The lie exposed its own architect. And now, every time they're in the same space, the silence is suffocating. The person they once tried to impress now watches them with quiet disappointment. No words are needed, just that look. That stillness, that pause before a reply. You didn't have to expose them. The universe handed that job to someone else, and now the judgment they fear most is the one they invited with their own mouth. Number 11. They wrote themselves out of your future. Now they're forced to watch it unfold without them. They didn't just burn a bridge, they torched their ticket to the very life they wanted to walk beside. They thought slandering your name would stall your journey, that if they tainted your image, doors would close, people would pull back, and your momentum would crash. But instead, the opposite happened. You kept rising, quietly, cleanly. And now they're trapped in a front row seat of their own punishment, watching everything they were once close to unfold without them. The betrayal wasn't just personal, it was strategic. They tried to assassinate your character to protect their ego, but when they spoke that lie, they didn't just lose your trust, they lost their access. Their invitation to walk with you into the next level was revoked by their own hand. And that loss, it wasn't temporary, it was permanent. Imagine lying about someone, only to realize your lie cost you every future moment beside their glow. That's the reality they live in now. They were supposed to grow with you, but they chose pettiness over purpose. Now they scroll through your progress like a silent spectator, liking in private, lurking from distance, never allowed back in. Not because you're bitter, but because the universe corrected the alignment. They didn't just exit your life, they were removed, and every win you experience cuts them deeper, not because of jealousy alone, but because of what could have been. They remember when they had access to your light, to your thoughts, to your kindness, but that light they tried to dim, it's now blinding from a distance they can't cross again. That's not your doing. That's the consequence of their betrayal. You don't need to clap back. Their punishment is baked into the silence. They talked themselves out of a future that once had their name on it. And now, no matter what room they enter, they'll always be haunted by the one they're no longer welcome in. Yours. Number 12. They thought you were alone, but the truth had eyes they couldn't see. They lied like no one was watching, but someone was. And now that truth is louder than their whisper ever was. They moved in silence, thinking you had no one, no backup, no credibility, no witness to the storm they tried to create around your name. That's what gave them confidence, the illusion that you were isolated, unprotected, invisible. But they made one fatal miscalculation. The truth always has a witness. Always. They assumed your quietness meant you were easy to target, that your humility made you vulnerable. But what they didn't know was that someone had already been watching, quietly, patiently, wisely, not watching for entertainment, but for truth. And as the lie made its way out of their mouth, that observer felt something shift. The story didn't sit right. The delivery was too forced, the energy was off, so they took mental notes and started watching you instead. Imagine trying to bury someone's reputation, and the person you whispered to becomes their silent bodyguard. That's what happened. They thought they were spreading darkness in secret, but light had already entered the room. That one person. They saw you, not just with their eyes, but with their discernment. They watched how you stayed calm when you could have clapped back. They saw how your peace remained intact while your name was under attack. That kind of stillness isn't weakness, it's strength, it's truth, it's character. And that's what made them shift. They didn't confront the liar. They didn't argue. They just moved different, slower replies, cold energy, quiet distance. That's how the liar started to feel the consequences, not through public shaming, but through subtle disconnection. The person they tried to use turned away from them and silently stood by you. And the most powerful part, you may never know how much that witness has done behind the scenes, what doors they opened, what rumors they shut down, what influence they've used to make sure your name stays clean. But their loyalty is real, and the liar knows it. They thought you were alone, but you weren't. The universe made sure someone was in the room, and now that lie, it's being dismantled, one silent truth at a time. Number 13. They can't look at you because you're everything they failed to break. They couldn't stain you, so now your purity stains them. They can't face you, not because you harmed them, but because you didn't. You didn't snap, you didn't stoop, you didn't retaliate. And that, chosen one, is what breaks them. You held your character like a sword, sharp, untouchable, and dignified. While they slung mud, you stayed clean. While they lied to destroy your peace, you moved in silence, calm, unshaken, pure. That's the part that eats them alive. They tried to bait you into chaos, hoping you'd explode, hoping you'd lash out, hoping you'd tarnish your own name so they wouldn't have to. But you never took the bait. And now every time they see you, thriving, glowing, whole, they're forced to see their own failure staring back at them. You didn't match their shadow. You reflected light. And that light exposed what they tried to keep hidden. Imagine trying to ruin someone's name and instead watching them become a walking contradiction to every word you spoke. That's what they live with now. The silence you held up like armor became a mirror. It reflected their bitterness, their insecurity, their inability to control you, and that's what keeps them away. Not guilt, shame. Because standing near you means facing the fact that they tried to corrupt something incorruptible and failed. You didn't need to argue. Your consistency did the talking. You didn't need to prove them wrong. Your peace proved it every day. That's why they've disappeared from your circle. Not because you blocked them, but because your energy is too honest to coexist with their lies. They ruined their access. They don't get to sit next to someone they tried to bury. The universe made sure of that. You are the proof that what's pure cannot be polluted. You are the consequence they didn't plan for, the victory they never wanted to witness. Let them watch from the distance. That's not exile, that's judgment, and your presence is the verdict. And chosen one, if this message hit your spirit and confirmed what you've been feeling deep down, then let it be your reminder. You never had to fight dirty to win. The truth stood with you the entire time. And now they're watching from the sidelines while you rise untouched. If you haven't already, press that like button. It helps push this truth to more souls like you. And if you're still not part of our powerful community, make sure to hit that subscribe button and join the family. Your light is needed here. Stay strong, stay silent, and keep walking in truth.